TFI has a mandate to grow and promote Toronto as a financial center, and part of that mandate involves looking at what other jurisdictions are doing around the world. As you may know, TFI has various counterpart organizations around the world, and I can sincerely say that when we are looking at other counterparts around the world, we look at DIFC as the gold standard or the gold template in terms of how we should run our activities and operations. So we're very thrilled and pleased to have Ali Hassan from the DIFC here, who's going to talk a little bit about Dubai and the GCC market, and specifically dive into the fintech environment there. So Ali, why don't I just turn it over to you?
Excellent. Thank you very much, Daniel, for that kind introduction. We would have loved to have been in Toronto in person. Obviously, events have unfolded that have that didn't make that the wisest thing to do this week. But we were thrilled that we could continue with this webinar. And as Daniel said, we as the DIFC look to work closely with organizations such as TFI. We have an MOU in place and have had one in place for some time. And we're looking to reinvigorate that. And this initiative is very much part of that. And I think that it is a win-win relationship that we look to foster, because we think Canada and Canadian talent and expertise can find great opportunities in the Middle East and wider region. So we're using technology. We're virtual today, but I'd love this to be interactive. I think you've had some instructions on the chat function. You've had so you can use the chat. You can unmute yourself if you want to say something, and don't hold back as we go through the information. Just pose the questions. And if you can't hear me or if there's any issue, then please let us know. So suffice to say that we are going through some extraordinary circumstances, and some of the macro and economic context and commentary that I'm going to share with you is under some disruption currently, but I think it's reasonable to suggest that the longer term trends that we will look at remain valid. So let's look at that. And this is a technology focused webinar. So we'll be looking at what has been what are the initiatives at play, what are the opportunities, how you can engage with those opportunities. Okay, so the first, we start high level. What are the why should MEASA, which is Middle East, Central, South Asia, be viewed as an opportunity for tech and innovation? And I think there's sort of four main drivers that we would point to. The region, particularly the Middle East, is significantly diversifying economies. Dubai has adopted that strategy for many years, and the rest of the region is certainly following. The region also has growth, so it's a double factor. So there's diversification, which is leading economies into different segments, and you also have growth economies within the region. The population, the demographics are very supportive, young, urban, tech savvy. There's a high adoption of technology, and we'll see a couple of examples of that. And Dubai in particular, but also throughout the Middle East, governments and economies have invested heavily in business enabling infrastructure, and we'll see examples of that in relation to Dubai and the DIFC. And so in terms of that economic growth, we have seen over actually the last 2 decades. So it's a fairly decent time span, significant outperformance in terms of economic growth in the Miaza region. And it's been very much part of that shift we've seen in overall GDP growth when looking at the globe, and very much hand in hand with commerce goes finance. So we've seen a measurable increase in financial services growth, 40% higher growth than average. And it's coming from a lower base, admittedly, but it's generating opportunities. And that growth in financial services is driven by the wealth that's being created by the economic growth, and also the financing that economic growth needs. Yeah, in terms of that population, 40% of the population is under 25. In MENA, it's very urban, and as I mentioned, the demographic contains the top 5 fastest growing economies in the world. And just an example of the adoption of technology and how tech savvy the population is, we've got this statistic in terms of smartphone penetration. What's startling for me is that it's actually within the GCC, you've got 70% penetration, which is 20% higher than Western Europe. You've got tremendous growth, again, albeit from a small base, occurring in Africa and South Asia. So the adoption, the use of devices and technology is widespread, is deep, and can be leveraged. And we've seen through sorry, I just got that one. So we see the world responding, and investors around the world responding to the growth possibilities and opportunities in MENA and the UAE, and you're seeing some interesting numbers there for the last 5 years, where the amount of investment going into MENA and the UAE have been running at almost 2 times, and in fact over 2 times the average around the world. So that gives that's sharing with you some macro trends and some metrics and values that indicate that there's opportunity in Miaza. Does anyone have any questions thus far, or any points to make before I move on to the next section? Okay. So that's, we're looking at, okay, so if Miaza looks interesting and you think, yes, let's explore where would be our landing point or our engagement point, then the suggestion from us is actually Dubai makes that perfect landing point for firms coming out of Canada and other markets. I mean, it is. I lived out there for 8 years, by the way. I'm actually based in the UK, but So I was there for 8 years, and I moved from London to Dubai, and it is a global city, in all the aspects that we want to see. So if you're living in Toronto, or if you're living in London or Frankfurt or Paris, the place in the Middle East that you feel most familiar with, but also from a lifestyle and business perspective, most comfortable with, is Dubai. And Dubai it's always been that that pivotal location for commerce that links Asia with the Middle East, Africa, Europe, and on to North America. And quite simply, I think that it has four underlying elements. So yeah, it's a global trade hub, which underlines its position. It provides geographically fantastic market access. It has world-class infrastructure, both hard and soft, in terms of the legal framework and regulations, and we'll touch upon that. And it is a great place to live. Yeah, just on the trade side of things, just underlying its importance as a global trading hub. You can see that the trade in Dubai has tripled really in the last 13 years, to 350 billion as of 2018, and that's a key element that underpins its importance. And then if we look at its geographical location, as I said, it's a key strategic location between at the center of global trade flows, linking east with west, and increasingly Asia to Africa. And now with that trade, this is the important thing, with that trade, you have talent, capital coming together, and the dynamics of a city that supports innovation is what you see happening in Dubai, and that's what we've seen shape the city over the last 3 decades.
Sorry, Ali. I can just hear a phone ringing in the background. Perhaps people want to just mute their phones. Thanks so much.
Yeah, sorry, Daniel. I think that I was the culprit there.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I'd say it has stopped now, so I'll have to
Okay.
continue. Hey, this is the first time we've done this, right? So,
No, it's going very well so far.
okay, excellent. Yeah, please shout out if there's anything like that as we go forward as well. So yeah, the market access is it's phenomenal from Dubai. In very few places around the world can you say that you've got access to 2.2 billion people within a 5-hour flight. I mean, I don't if you look at Europe or North America, that's not the case. And I would encourage Canadians, and I've been to Toronto before, and various, and I know you guys sit right next door to a $16 trillion economy, but I really do think that you guys have got fantastic expertise and talent that could engage wider markets. So you have that access, and hey, and the other thing about that, particularly looking at tech and innovation and some of the solutions we're seeing that that are coming up, you've got a fantastic mix of population in this in this region that's highlighted on this slide, right? So you've got the uber affluent end of the spectrum, that have particular needs in terms of wealth management, access to markets, capital markets, and then at the other end you have people of lesser means that need effective easily contactable financial services around, banking and insurance and savings. I mean, can you imagine the difference to lives, that could be made through a cost-effective insurance product in some of those regions that are highlighted. And of course, we know about the airlines in the region of Dubai and Emirates in particular. The access, the potential access, is supported by that connectivity that the airlines in the region give you, into Asia, into Africa, back into Europe, and indeed into North America. And just again, some metrics to support the notions that we've been putting forward. So Dubai government has worked very, very hard to provide the infrastructure and the lifestyle to make it conducive for populations to consider living in the city. So lifestyle wise, it is in terms of education, in terms of medical facilities, in terms of sporting and leisure opportunities, that's there. And at the same time, the business friendly aspects and the infrastructure to support those businesses and the connectivity that those businesses need have been put in place. So I think this is quite an interesting stat, actually, that 70%, over 70% of Fortune 500 companies that have a presence in the region, have their hub, their headquarters in Dubai. I think that's really compelling. And of course, it's ranked number one in MENA in terms of competitiveness. So it's again illustrates and supports some of the notions that we've just been putting forward. Yeah, and then just touching on the the livability. Dubai is not a hardship posting. Life is good in the city, and all things being equal, when we go back to normality, post-virus, in terms of travel and leisure and holidays, it's a fantastic location. But the important aspects are also there in terms of medical and educational facilities. So yeah, again, it's ranked one in MENA in terms of livability, forced by MasterCard in terms of global destination cities. So it's been recognised, for the steps it's taken through a long period of time, right? So this is not a flash in the pan. Dubai actually, I think Dubai should be viewed in people's minds on a par with Singapore in many aspects. In many ways, that's a good comparison. And in fact, Singapore has been around for about the same time as Dubai. So what Dubai has been doing has been consistent throughout a long period of time. And but it's not. Again, it's a very entrepreneurial, dynamic city, and it's Dubai is certainly not resting on achievements. We recognise, Dubai recognises how people are working, collaborating, educating, is changing, and Dubai is committed to drive its economy through innovation and support through investment certain sectors. So, the examples of which you can see on this slide. Yeah, and in terms of adopting technology, it's an example is that Dubai is committed to have all its government departments utilizing blockchain capability by 2020, by the end of 2020. And we're, in fact, the DIFC is a founding member of the UAE Blockchain Council, and there are a number of ongoing initiatives around innovation. So the DIFC as a physical locality in Dubai, alongside Emirates Towers, which is where the Dubai executive offices are based, and the World Trade Center. That they are sort of adjacent locations in the city of Dubai. That's been identified as the future district of the city, which in combination will drive innovation throughout the economy and associated activities. Okay, so now just coming in. So the proposition is there. Dubai is a great location to look at. And how about some examples? Well, we've seen, and these are successful entities that have arisen out of Dubai and its entrepreneurial environment. And you've got a couple of notable ones there. Careem, the rideshare entity headquartered in Dubai, acquired by Uber in 2019 for 3 billion. Souq.com acquired by Amazon. And actually what you're also seeing here is an indication of how over the last, I think, 3 or 4 years, e-commerce has really taken off as well within the region. When I was out there, it was only just starting, right? So I was there 2005 to 13. It was only just getting going, but now it's really has traction, and you can see some of the examples that have come out of Dubai's entrepreneurial environment. Yeah, and then you also, in terms of raising funds and success around fintech, you have some payment services. So Network International, that was recently IPO'd onto London Stock Exchange for 3 billion. A couple of DIFC entities there as well. Beehive, which is a crowd lending platform, recently raised a decent amount. And Sarwell, which is also, that's actually, I think, a graduate of our accelerator program that we have within FinTech Hive, our ecosystem for tech, which we'll come on to in a minute. So you're seeing, look, this is evidence of activity and opportunity. And let's just touch on, and I'd like to just highlight some specific fintech, and then we'll go wider tech in a minute, but fintech opportunities. I mean, payments, significant flows, given the nature of the demographics, the makeup of the population, the flows of assets into other jurisdictions. Remittances are huge, right? 25% of all world remittances originate from the GCC, and they're going wide, throughout the globe. And the other thing is cash, and the utilization of cash is still a significant proportion of transactions. It's slowly being eroded, but there's still a great amount of opportunity to convert that cash transactions into electronic. And of course, I think electronic payments serve a number of benefits to society, from efficiency, but also regulatory aspects as well. Yeah, digital banking. So this is what I was saying earlier. You've got opportunities at both ends of the spectrum. So the GCC, really heavily banked, mature, affluent, great market for wealth management products, great market for capital markets products, and perhaps allowing access to execution on exchanges worldwide. And then you've got other areas of the geography which are less banked, that need those those cost-effective, simple solutions that can make a huge ethical impact, and also be viable businesses. I mean, most importantly as well. And RegTech, as a former financial regulator, I've seen this up close and personal. There is a perception of higher risk in the region, and subsequently the cost of onboarding a client in the GCC for banks and other financial services firms is on average 21% higher in the GCC than in other, in the global market, and that makes it, that's a huge opportunity for digital identification, verification, digital CDD, KYC, to get rid of the false positives and the false red flags that you get, and to streamline, that very sort of, manual, heavily process driven work that's currently there. So I think that for me, I think that's a huge opportunity. And then of course,
Ali, sorry to cut you. I think we have a question from Joshua.
I haven't been monitoring the. Okay, with the appetite towards the all takes sense. Right, excellent question, Joshua. So Joshua is asking about digital assets, and he's mentioned cryptocurrency. So Joshua, and we're going to come on to the regulatory side in a moment. But I think that it's fair to say that we are, our regulator and the central bank of the UAE are mindful of building out the regulatory framework. The DFSA, which is our the regulator in the DIFC, has issued payment regulations, so it has a comprehensive payments regulatory framework in place as of the 1st of April. So anything you can do, say in Canada or the UK around payments, you should be able to do in the DIFC April going forward. Crypto assets will be the next area for the DFSA to look at. I think they're currently developing the regime, and that's around having a token which obviously represents something real underneath. Cryptocurrencies is a little bit trickier because I think the central bank, obviously, with its responsibilities, is concerned to understand the implications of bringing cryptocurrency into the jurisdiction. So at the moment, I would say green light on payments. We're sort of amber moving to green on digital assets, crypto assets, and at the moment, digital currencies are still kind of red, as but people are trying to figure out, how and when, and there's an opportunity actually for the market to engage policymakers in the UAE to help develop understanding, and that's where Canadian expertise could certainly assist. Okay, yeah. So I've just going back to the slide. Islamic finance, obviously, with the nature of the region, it is also a compelling proposition. That typically with Sharia compliant products, and I think Islamic finance, quite rightly, Islamic finance can rightly be seen as a subset of ethical finance, and the opportunity here is that up until now, I think there is demand, but there's been certain cost issues that have held back this particular segment, where the overall cost of a Sharia compliant product has not been competitive versus a conventional product. So again, technology could well be utilized to deliver that. Okay, so now just turning to the DIFC very briefly to give you the overall view, and we sort of touched on some certain aspects with Joshua's question, but it was created in 2004, and the main aim right from the beginning was to have this physical area to provide an ecosystem that's in line with international standards of law and regulation, but in combination with the business-friendly aspects that will attract international participants to come and make the most of the opportunities that are there. And it's been 100% organic growth. There hasn't been any inducement or come here and we'll give you a mandate type of approach. It's actually been organic. Yes, we support you. Yes, your success is our success, but we provide the infrastructure, and then people go and do proper business and make that profitable. And in fact, in the 15 years that we've been in existence, we've now been ranked 8th globally by the ZN Global Financial Centers Index last year, and all the aspects that people look for are there, and we'll just touch upon each aspect as we go through. Okay, so in 2017, the DIFC initiated its tech efforts through the establishment of DIFC FinTech Hive. Is everyone on mute, or we got yeah, I can hear somebody else's. I can hear myself back. Okay, so FinTech Hive, and it was created in 2017, and we've already got 140 plus tech firms sitting on the platform, and we're targeting 250 by the end of this year. So we've seen tremendous interest in this. We're offering a very subsidized, low cost of entry. It's not really about the money. It's actually saying, expertise, talent, come and join the community and help us and the market innovate. And in fact, it was sort of thin, so financial focused initially, but we now have a much wider innovation license, which is for any type of tech that's coming out and is bringing innovation to Dubai and its economy. You can qualify for that. And then once you're in Hive, you have access to programs that are available depending upon where you are in your development cycle. So we do have a startup program that's offered by Startup Bootcamp. We run our own accelerator program, which is a structured 12-week event, and we have 2 or 3 cohorts a year for that. And we've recently introduced the Scale Up program, where we're actually working with 6 investors, including DIFC's own FinTech investment fund. And that's really for companies that have the post-Series A funding, have a tried and tested business model, and really want to scale up their business. And as part of those programs, and indeed being on Hive, you have access to firms from our community and indeed the wider UAE community who are available as mentors, as partners, you know, as investors and indeed, you know, users of you know, a product. So a really, you know, cool ecosystem that's embedded in the wider, you know, DIFC cluster. And that cluster is significant, right? So we, you know, within our 110 acres, there are 25,000 people, you know, over 600 regulated entities, and you know, 2,500 registered firms. So there are, you know, those registered firms. They're sort of professional service providers, you know, company headquarters, treasury operations, family offices, proprietary investment offices. So there's a full service, you know, financial and related activities presence, and it is the largest, you know, financial center in between Zurich and Geneva, you know, on the left, and you know, Singapore and Hong Kong on the right. And the other thing about Dubai is it is international, right? So people are sitting in the DIFC as an international initiative. There are other financial service centers in the region, but as in other geographies, right? Those other ones tend to be more domestic focused. So, you know, you could look at Saudi for Saudi. You could look at Abu Dhabi for Abu Dhabi. You could look at Bahrain similarly. But Dubai is a truly international location. And that's why, you know, you have had those aspects that I've talked about. You have, you know, the major players establishing in the DIFC. You know, many of those have been there for many years, and it's a great mix. It's international players from the West. You have Indian banks, Chinese banks, and also increasingly regional players. So you actually have Kuwaiti banks that will come and sit in the DIFC because of, you know, what Dubai and the UAE you know, offers as a place to do business, and the credibility of somewhere like the DIFC, because people, counterparties, you know, relationships, business relationships, view that as a credible location to be dealing with. And the business friendly aspects of the DIFC. So we have the, you know, the proper standards of laws and regulations, but we also have, you know, the business aspects to assist and you know, support business. So there's a 0% corporate tax rate and a 0% income tax rate, and you have 100% ownership, no need for any local partner, free flow of capital, employ who you like, so very, very flexible. And then, yeah, and this is really, really important. You know, and you know, again, I would emphasize this. We've worked in Dubai, and DIFC's worked incredibly hard to put in place a proper corporate governance framework. So we have three bodies in the center: Dubai International Financial Center Authority, who I now represent. We're responsible for administering and nurturing the ecosystem, raising awareness of the possibilities, and supporting businesses to engage. The DFSA is the regulator, independent regulator operating to international standards, has a number of MOUs in place with other regulators. And then we have the courts, because we are a common law environment. But we have our own laws. You know, there are other jurisdictions that talk about we are common law, but they have no laws. But we have our own laws, which are closely aligned to England and Wales. But the important thing is we can adjust them for the local context, and also in response to developments. You know, the world is full of developments right now, right? So you need the capability to legislate. I think so. Each, you know, so the DFSA has its own independent board. and the DIFC authority has its own independent board. There's no mixing of the business, with the regulatory aspects. Of course, the centre as a whole is aware of strategic initiatives, just as you get in other jurisdictions such as the UK or Canada. You will have engagement between government and regulators, but the decision making is certainly independent. Okay, so that's pretty much what I wanted to run through today. I can open it up. I can open up my chat box as well, see if anything. Hi, Jeffrey. It's great to see you. Yeah, so I just saw Jeffrey Graham had joined. I've known Jeffrey for some time.
Ali, I think we have a question in the chat room from Rohit.
Oh yes, excellent. Yeah, for any programs. Yeah, absolutely, Rohit. So, Rohit is asking about programs in the pipeline for Canadians to collaborate with the DIFC. Absolutely. I do believe, and Daniel, jump in, please. I do believe if you're on the fintech side of things, there is a plan to take a group over to Dubai at some point next year. Is that right?
Yeah, so we are exploring the possibility of coordinating a fintech delegation during the World Expo Week. Given the current circumstances, that's subject to change. But if we do go forward with that, we will certainly be advertising that widely. And please feel free to contact me or anyone else at TFI regarding that.
Absolutely, yeah, and I'm sure it will happen. Whether dates move or whatever, but we do have those programs in the DIFC, Rohit, around whether you're a startup, whether you're looking for an acceleration program or the scale up. So it is there.
Ali, perhaps somewhat related to that question, can you talk a little bit about whether fintechs in a DIFC are regulated differently, and are there any special regulatory exemptions that are offered to fintechs who are in the DIFC?
Yes, very good point, Daniel. So the regulator, the DFSA, is actually part of the global initiative. I think it's called GFIN.
Yep.
So you're familiar with that. So that's basically trying to align their approach to fintechs with others, and indeed, actually be able to concurrently review an application. But the upshot is the DFSA has a sandbox type approach as well, where in order to facilitate innovation coming into the DIFC, they will, forego some of the standard regulatory requirements and obligations for a period of time, and at the same time, obviously, that they may limit the amount of business you do or the number of clients you can onboard, etc. But that sort of tailoring that you see in other jurisdictions is available through the innovation testing license, which is what it's called, the DFSA's license. That is certainly an option. We, in terms of the mix of entities on FinTech Hive, it's actually a mix of regulated and unregulated entities, because certain things that you do, if you white label your business, so you're providing a tech solution to bank, then you may not need regulation directly yourself. We also allow people through our innovation license, you have the capability to come and engage the market, explore, have some, conduct some research, and look at the options for you before launching fully into regulated activities. So it is very, very flexible. Yeah, excellent, Rohit. Thank you for your message. And we will actually, after this, we will circulate the presentation. And feel free to contact Daniel or myself directly if you need any further information. Any other points at this point? Well, I think Daniel, are we done?
Okay. That's great. If anyone does have any subsequent questions, again, feel free to reach out directly to Ali or myself as well. So maybe Ali, on behalf of TFI, I just wanted to thank you for a very comprehensive and insightful presentation. You covered a lot of information in a relatively short period of time, and I found I found the presentation to be quite insightful. As Ali said, we'd be happy to circulate a copy of the presentation to everyone who was kind enough to participate today, and we look forward to having future events in person with the DIFC shortly.
Thank you very much, Daniel. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'll send you a copy, and then you can maybe onward distribute. And yeah, stay safe, everyone, and yeah, let's all get through this together.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.